Sometimes I think we got to ask ourselves that question: do we want to stay on the shallow side of life or move to the deep end of life in which God becomes our only lifeguard?
Willing to be yourself in the sight of people, no matter what people think. I think that's what it's all about. Welcome back to another banger on my YouTube family. Listen, it's the Inspired Trucker, back with another one. And it's very hard to catch me sometimes. We always on the move. We always out here ripping and running. We hauling these containers, figuring out the business, maximizing profits, growing in our faith. And you know what? We even dealing with the hard pains of what it means to be an owner-operator and a faithful husband. Oh yeah, also an author too. But today, while the Lord has given me the capacity to be stopped, I have no other choice by his will to share an experience with you, but to also talk to my business owner out there who aspire to be owner ops and who just love to see the experiences and perspective of owner ops, especially in a market like this with so much going on politically. So stay tuned for today's video. We're gonna jump straight into it. Let's get it. Interestingly enough, I got my head camera in the truck, but I did not bring my phone camera, but that's all good. So all our tires are pretty much working. Let me just show y'all. Everything's pretty much looking good. We was at the rail yard for a little bit of time, and just a few moments ago, everything's looking good as far as on the truck. Everything was pretty good. You know, we sat there for maybe hour and a half, and just maybe 20 minutes ago or so, we experienced a blowout. You know, and I heard a big pop, and I'm gonna tell you, anytime a driver hears a big pop, you better know that that's a blowout. So now we got, you know, reflectors out. All other tires are looking pretty good, but for now, this is what we're dealing with. And you know, it leads right into the video I want to talk about to all of those out there that watch, maximizing profits as an owner op. So as I said before, you know, now that we're sitting here, a lot of times people's most fearful thing in this lifetime is breaking down. So majority of people's biggest fear in trucking is breaking down. But if you can learn how to maximize profits as you minimize expenses, when you do deal with a breakdown, you won't have to cry. Now listen, there's a lot going on with trucking rates. There's probably been a lot going on with trucking rates the past 4 to 5 years. But I think this was an opportunity for a lot of us to learn how to budget and to learn how to understand what it means to store up. You know, the word of God would even teach us to store up, that the ants store up for, you know, against the winter, against the cold. But I want to talk to you about some different business models. And if you stick to this video, you'll understand how you can maximize profits wherever you are and you can minimize expenses based on the business plan and based on the market that you in, even though the corporate market of trucking is all in the same boat, in my opinion. First of all, when you think about reefers, when you think about dry van, you think about containers, you think about flatbed. All these different industries, from reefer to dry van to containers and to flatbed, are different markets. And so the only industry that I have not the only particular lane in this industry that I haven't did was flatbed, but I've did reefer. You know, if you average around $2.70 a mile, you know, depending on your profit margins, you could potentially still be at like 90 cents a mile, which means that you have more gross, but less net. It's psychological. The second one that I said was dry van. Dry van, you may have less gross, but you may have around the same net or maybe a few cents more, just depending on the fuel consumption and things like that. Remember, with a reefer, you have that fuel expense. Very simple. The third one, containers. Containers is what I'm doing now. That's why I want to speak to containers. How can somebody maximize and minimize their expenses, maximize their profits in containers? Well, first of all, in the container business, if you have a blowout, you don't got to worry about, you know, paying for tires or anything, because you subcontract or you sub-partner with other people. That's why one of the things that within the profitability of containers is, well, because they don't have to pay for equipment, what's a fair and just pay? You'll see markets, or you'll see per mile at about $1.50, sometimes $2. Some other companies $2.50. But there's always going to be some minimize profitability because you're not taking on the same expenses as a guy doing reefer or a guy who's renting out a drive-in who got to pay for all the expenses. And so that's one of the things, one of the ways that if you want to maximize profits and minimize expenses in trucking, hauling containers is one of the good things, because having a blowout on all those tires, you don't have to pay for it. That's a big thing. Now on your truck, you got to pay for it. So one of the ways that you can maximize profits and minimize expenses on your truck in contrast to the container and chassis, or chassis with the container, is being somebody who takes care of how you drive and operate your equipment. That's the carnal aspect. The spiritual aspect to me is praying that the Lord will be with you. You know, allow your wheels to be something that can give you increase. That may sound very foolish, but having faith, because see, profitability and increase don't come from just, you know, good logic. It comes from faith. It comes from you having somebody who's willing to watch over your equipment, allow you to be at the right place at the right time, so on and so forth. And that's why it's the equal of spiritually praying that the Lord will keep your equipment safe and allow your equipment to be profitable for his kingdom, while also you logically taking care of the things that you driving, you know, not driving reckless, not driving too fast, learning how to take care of your tires. Tires can last a great deal of years if you drive and you run the right amount of loads. Another, you know, more intellectual aspect is wanting to be somebody that take lighter loads. If you take lighter loads and you're not going up and downhill, that's, you know, preserving your tires. That's how you can minimize your expenses. Imagine only having to do a PM service every few months and you're not dealing with any major expenses. You have a lot of profit margin to store up, to save, to invest, whatever that looks like in your business. And that's why understanding this, see, a lot of times the stigma around trucking was they make a lot of money. Yeah, but if you make a lot of money, for instance, you make $15,000 and you spend 13. And I mean, that's including if you pay yourself, that's including all the things the truck takes, maintenance account, taxes, all these different things. You're really not any different than somebody that works at a regular job making $6,000 a month, essentially. And I was thinking about that, and I think that's worthy to talk to on this as we got the moment, because if one trucker was making $100,000, but he took home 72% of that, $72,000, $28,000 go to the truck and all the other things. But another trucker took home 130 and he only profited 68. That's a $4,000 difference with a $30,000 gross surplus. 130 versus 100. But this guy that made 100 made 72. This guy that made 130 made 68. Who really, the guy that made 130 probably worked a little bit more, did a little bit more, but they profited less because they probably didn't minimize the expenses. Every business have a different expense margin, but trucking is pretty consistent. It's something that is fixed. You learn how to minimize those fixed expenses and have the right partnerships. Containers, especially being home every day, can really be something that can be profitable for you. You see, trucking got to become profitable for you and where you at in your financial situation and what's your objective and your goal. A lot of times, I was talking to my wife about this, a lot of people don't really have an objective. You just drive the drive because that's just what you like to do, or that's what you do. But we must have an objective. And we must know how to pivot. With these tariffs and all the things that's going on, there's still profit, because where no truck is, there's no consistency of consumption in goods being sold or being brought into an economy. And that's something that as we learn that, we learn how to understand that being an owner-operator isn't just operating one semi-truck. It's operating a business. And every business maximizes profits and minimizes expenses. One thing I also want you to know about trucking too, if you're still on here with me, make it to this part of the video, is this. When it comes to us understanding what it really looks like to be in an industry where you don't really see a raise year in, year out if you're working for yourself, you got to learn how to give yourself a raise. See, 50 cents makes a tremendous difference. Let me give you a scenario. 50 cents at 25 miles is about $1,500 if I'm not mistaken. So imagine an extra $1,500 with 70% profit margins in trucking. That's an extra, $700 or $800 each week. That makes a tremendous difference in the totality of anybody's financial portfolio, especially being somebody who's grinding it out as an owner-operator, as a self-employed independent contractor. One thing that I learned about this industry that's extremely important for you to know is that there's a 50% of the 100% rule, and there's a 65% or 65 to 70% of the 50% rule. What do I mean? Let's say this particular business pays, the the company that I'm contracting with $10,000. That company will give me $5,000 of it, because if that's $3 a mile, they'll give me $1.50 a mile. Out of that $1.50, net profit will be about 65%. So out of that $1.50, you may see profit margins around, because 50% of $1.50 is 75%, 65% is about 90 cents to $1. And so you always want to be mindful of the 50% of the 100 rule, 65% of the 50. That's if you take anything else from this video, understand that, and you'll understand how you really can. That's the only way, whether you old or young, you can become a successful owner operator year in, year out. I'm giving you this information for free because I love everybody that comes to watch the Inspired Trucker. Right now, we have a blowout. Don't matter. You know, if that's not an expense for us, then we good. The only expense that we'll have is the time and then this clock running down. But nevertheless, as long as we still get to make that profit margin off of this load, which I think was around about $1.31 a mile, we're good. You know, we figure out how to put the right amount of fuel in there, have a fuel discount, and we going on about our day continuously having an objective, having a budget, and minimizing our expenses so we can maximize our profits. I hope this helps you as an Inspired Trucker, and I hope you understand something. Even the Word of God, if you're a believer out there, you know, even the Word of God teaches us how to continue to follow principles that give us increase, no matter what industry you in. I'm only speaking to truckers. But thank you. If you come to this part of the video, let's step outside and let's see how this tire look, and let's enjoy the good weather out there. Stay tuned for the next video. God bless y'all. So sometimes you just got to deal with the truckers that don't want to get over when you broke down. And hopefully they don't knock down, you know, those triangles. But I'm thankful it's a beautiful day. There wasn't a car behind us. That could have been worse. Could have been worse than what it was. I'm always thankful. I'm always trying to find something to be thankful for. Whatever was up ahead on the road, the Lord didn't want me to, you know, partake in it. So we out here trying to get these truckers to get over sometimes. They just don't like to do it. He ended up getting over. He getting over. But they getting over late. But we out here just waiting on them to come fix this tire. We'll get back rolling on the road. You know, we got to continue to be profitable in business and keep trucking. That's what we're here for. The Inspired Trucker, I'm out. God bless every one of y'all. I'll see y'all next time. Peace. Find who you are, live in spirit, and find peace.
Our lives are meant to be legacies for somebody else, for generations to come. And we got to continue to walk after that and do things that are courageous.